What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 55 of the Fleaflicker NFL show. And after a pretty disappointing Super Bowl, I'm glad to say I am back in the studio to record some nice football content. And I am once again joined by my great co-host, Amal Ronak. What's up, Amal?
What's up, Arib? Like you said, quite disappointing of a Super Bowl. I mean, quite a letdown, honestly, in every single aspect. And the coin toss is undefeated, man. When you lose the coin toss, you're going to win the Super Bowl. It's been like that for the past 7 Super Bowls, and it's continued to go on. And that it was a blowout this time. This is probably the biggest margin of victory in Brady's career in the Super Bowl. And this is probably arguably the most impressive run that he's ever had. So, let's just dive right into that. And then right after that, we'll discuss, I guess, what's after the Super Bowl. Obviously, the free agency market opens up in about a month or so. I believe March 16th is the date. I might be mistaken, but I think March 16th is the day the league opens. So the free agents on the market, we're going to talk about the top free agents, their potential landing spots that they could join. Also, the trade market that's going out there. There's a lot of trade rumors that were even happening on Super Bowl weekend regarding players such as Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz, but there's just a lot of different players. Derek Carr, but we're going to dive right into that later on. And let's just hop right into this very depressing Super Bowl that happened. The Kansas City Chiefs played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers, I think they just control the game from start to finish, Arib. And it was quite shocking, the performance that I saw from Patrick Mahomes. That is probably the worst game I've ever seen him play, but he definitely put up a fight, man. He definitely tried his best. Definitely had some missed throws in there, but having no O-line is a problem. And when we discussed the positional advantages head to head, I never expected that O-line gap to be that big, man. I really, really didn't. If the Chiefs O-line was fully healthy, I could definitely see this game being way closer. It could have honestly even gone the other way. But the problem was it was just so difficult for Mahomes to get any passes out. The Bucks only blitzed the Chiefs, I believe, like 7 times the whole game. And the remaining of the pressures and the dropbacks that Mahomes have been just because his O-line, poor O-line. And guys like Mike Remmers dropping the ball down. It was just a letdown performance, in my opinion, from this Kansas City Chiefs O-line. And on defense, it wasn't getting any better. The defense couldn't contain Rob Gronkowski. We said that would have been a key matchup, how to stop Rob Gronkowski. I said for a key for the Bucks to win is to exploit the Gronk matchup, and they did it, man. 6 receptions for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. Probably the best game Gronk had all season, and he looked amazing out there. That Brady Gronk duo is, I believe, now the most touchdowns in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs, I believe, between a quarterback and wide receiver duo in NFL history. That was impressive. Leonard Fournette looked incredible as well. 89 yards on the ground and 16 carries, and he had 46 receiving yards. He was just looking like a bulldozer out there, Reeb. And it was just, he looked monstrous. And if I told you entering into this game that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin would combine for 6 receptions for 40 yards, I would completely tell you that the score would be 31-9 for the Chiefs to win this game and not the Bucks. And it was just a complete masterclass performance by this Bucks defense. Devin White looked incredible. Levante David looked incredible. JPP looked incredible. You can't not credit this incredible defense on what they put out there today on Sunday. So just want to give them credit for that. And man, just a complete letdown. I think now you can safely say that Tom Brady, not even just the greatest quarterback of all time, not even just the greatest NFL player of all time, but he can potentially be the greatest athlete of all time, winning 7 Super Bowls, winning 7 Super Bowls out of 10 possible. Uh, Something incredible. He's 43 years old, doing all this at this old of an age is just incredible. We talk about guys like LeBron James having success at a very old age. Tom Brady doing it at 43 is just mind blowing. Yes, he had a great team around him, probably the best team he's ever had around him, but that doesn't excuse his 200-yard performance and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he still got the job done. Congrats to him winning the Super Bowl MVP. He partied hard today, Arib. I don't know if you saw that boat party. The dude when he exited out of that when the parade was done,
he was
he
gone.
he was gone. I mean, the dude literally couldn't walk. He needed assistance for walking.
I hope
I
his
mean,
liver is fine. Like I know
yeah, I
the
mean, but
rest of
that
his body doesn't age, but I'm sure his liver is aged, and he's probably
yeah,
going
I
to be
mean,
feeling it tomorrow.
yeah, definitely. I mean that's fine, man. He deserved a great, well hard fought season. I picked against the Bucks for almost every playoff matchup except of course the Washington football team matchup, and they've kept on proving me wrong in the Saints game, the Packers game, and now this Chiefs game. Uh, I expected them to make the playoffs probably as a wild card team. I said they would range anywhere from like 5 to 6. I had them entering into the season. I mean, I completely did not expect this Bucks team to not just make the Super Bowl but win it. It's quite special, and yeah, man. Now they're a serious threat for the next season.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of stuff, and I know for a fact that I'm gonna rant about Tom Brady in a few minutes. But I want to go back to our last episode, Amal, and I remember I wrote down 4 keys for the Buccaneers to win in the Super Bowl, and the first one was to protect Tom Brady. Tom Brady had 29 dropbacks in the Super Bowl, and he was pressured on 4 of them. So I have my handy calculator out here. That's 4 divided by 29. He was pressured on less than 14% of his snaps, right? Which is a pretty good job against Frank Clark, against Chris Jones, 2 really good pass rushers for the Kansas City Chiefs. The second point I had was limit the Chiefs' weapons. And I think we could very much say that. I watched some of the film in this game, and what they did was they essentially doubled Travis Kelce, and they always had a guy on top of Tyreek Hill. So they had a guy guarding Tyreek Hill man on man or zone whenever they're guarding him, but they always had an extra safety over his side as well. So he could never really do anything deep. Just frankly, he was guarded down deep, and that's where Tyreek Hill makes a lot of his that's where he earns his money, essentially. These busted plays downfield, or not even busted, where he would just run past safeties because he got angles and all that stuff. And Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, deserves a really strong round of applause, in my opinion, for the way that he was able to just make sure that he limited Travis Kelce, who I said is the MVP of the Chiefs offense. And he did have a key drop on a third down here, but still, I think Travis Kelce, other than Patrick Mahomes, is the only offensive player to show up for the Kansas City Chiefs with 10 receptions, 133 yards. But even though he had a good day, he was very much limited by these linebackers, by these safeties. And I think that deserves a round of applause. And in doing so, you stopped the other head of the 2-headed attack for the Chiefs in Tyreek Hill. You had a guy over top of him deep. And Tyreek Hill, I remember we were watching the game, and you talked about it multiple times. Where's Tyreek Hill? Is Tyreek Hill even playing? I think I literally said, is Tyreek Hill even on the field? Is he injured? Because he did have 7 for 73, but at the end of the day, that 7 for 73 was meaningless. He didn't have an impact on the game when he really needed to have an impact on the game. And I don't think you can necessarily blame Tyreek Hill. He did have one weird drop where it looked like the ball bounced off his helmet, but that's not the type of receiver Tyreek Hill is. I think you've got to credit the Bucks for realizing the type of player that both Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are, and being able to shut them down, or at least shut Tyreek Hill down, who I think is not necessarily the MVP, but he's the one who makes the bigger, splashier plays. I think they did a really good job of doing that. And they forced players like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was the running back, like players like Darrell Williams, another running back, Sammy Watkins, Demarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman, players like Brian Pringle, who, shout out to him for having a great last name, but they forced those guys to beat this really good defense for the Bucks, and they just couldn't do it. The third thing I said was run the ball well. And overall, the Bucks, they didn't really control the time of possession that much. They only had 31 minutes to 29 minutes around, like estimating. So the time of possession was pretty close, but they did control the trenches, especially later on in the game. Very late in the game when they had to run out the clock. They were controlling the clock, making sure that there was no chance of a comeback. They had 145 rushing yards, and Leonard Fournette had a really good, I think, a 25-yard rushing touchdown, 27-yarder, and it was a good run. You see some of his burst, you see his physicality, and even a guy like Ronald Jones, who really much was it became playing second fiddle to a guy like Leonard Fournette. He had 12 carries, 61 yards. He played a good game as well. They're able to control, not necessarily to control the time of possession mostly, but they're able to continuously get first downs in the rushing game. And that was my third key. And the last one, which is definitely the most important one, you need to pressure Mahomes and you need to get turnovers, force turnovers from Mahomes. And I mean, I can transition to the Chiefs' four keys that I had, but man, did they pressure Mahomes. Mahomes was pressured on 53% of his dropbacks, I believe, which I think is a Super Bowl record. And that's not a record you want to have as an offense with your quarterback being the most pressured player in Super Bowl history. And there are plays, Amal, where I think you said it, but it was just like the offensive line was not there. It was just like ball snap, and instantly there's 3 or 4 guys in Mahomes' face. And when I mean instantly, it's like they all split their gaps between the linemen and they teleported from the opposite side of the line of scrimmage to in front of Patrick Mahomes. It was ridiculous. And Patrick Mahomes didn't have the best day. He did make some complete bonkers throws where he's running around and he's falling and delivering accurate passes 25, 30 yards downfield. But at the end of the day, you can't blame Patrick Mahomes for this. He did not play a good game. But really, what it came down to was the offensive line. The offensive line was the biggest factor. And for the Chiefs, the number one factor I had was to protect Mahomes, and they couldn't do that. And there was a reason why that was my number one factor for them to win the game. They needed to do that to win the game. Like that was the key thing with all the offensive line injuries. They're missing Mitchell Schwartz, Kalikio Semele, Eric Fisher towards ACL or Achilles, I believe, against the Bills in the conference championship game. They're missing a lot of key players, and that's really what was the difference in this Super Bowl. Second for the Chiefs, score fast and don't let up. They didn't score at all. Force turnovers was my third thing. They didn't force any. And my fourth one was capitalize on turnovers, and they didn't force any turnovers to capitalize on. And overall, I didn't think the Chiefs were going to get blown out when I predicted the Bucks to win. I thought it would be a close game. What I predicted was that whoever got the ball last would win, and I projected that the Bucks would get the ball last. And honestly, it didn't matter who got the ball last because the game was over essentially after like halfway through the third quarter. Like it was honestly a very disappointing Super Bowl, and I think it just makes us cherish the great Super Bowls even more, like Super Bowl 49, Super Bowl 51, Super Bowl 52, which are all conveniently Tom Brady Super Bowls. But at the end of the day, you got to sort of hold in high regard those Super Bowls that are actually great. And yeah, it's a Super Bowl. It's always going to be like an event, a spectacle, but I'm just disappointed because I ended off last week's podcast saying, enjoy your ice cream, enjoy your chicken wings or whatever. And hopefully we can all enjoy a good game. And we just didn't get a good game.
Yeah, I mean, Reeb and I actually got to watch the Super Bowl together. We were having a bunch of our friends together, and we were watching the game, and we were just completely disappointed. I even told the Reeb at times I just wanted to just turn off the game. Let's do something else, like maybe play ping pong, play Madden. We were just talking about all different types of nonsense. Because I mean, the game was just bad, man. They only scored 3 points in the second half. I thought for sure the Chiefs were going to come back. I thought that was Mahomes' thing, but I mean, he looked helpless out there, man. This was awful. Mahomes has never had a 0 touchdown game in his football career, high school, dating back to high school, college, and in the pros. And I mean, it's just shocking that a guy that only throws touchdowns passes played so poorly. I think that speaks volumes about the pressure that this Bucks defense brought. forth. And I think it comes back to, to where we all started when it came to this Bucks team in the beginning of the season and midway through the season, and that's the amount of power Tom Brady had to just dictate the team. And that's very important in this league. Your player, your star player that you want to keep on your team needs to be involved with the personnel decisions and all the different player decisions that whoever players you want. I mean, if Gronk and AB were responsible for 3 touchdowns, and Fournette, all the players that Brady wanted got touchdowns this game, and you can't discount that as saying that it was just a general manager move. That's what they decided. No, that was Brady. I mean, Bruce Arians did not want Gronk, did not want Antonio Brown, and he got the touchdown that play. So I mean, I have to emphasize this because we're about to enter into our next segment, which is regarding the free agency and the trading market. I think it's very important that these cornerstone franchise players become more involved with the future of the team, such as like guys like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was completely blindsided when they took Jordan Love, and if they took honestly a more meaningful pick, they wouldn't be in the position where they were in the NFC Championship game. I mean, Jordan Love did just as much as I did in this season. He's done nothing that positively contributes to the Green Bay Packers in any means. Yeah, he could say he got better, but he's playing also with backups then, so you never really know. And then like right now we're like once again when we're about to talk about this next topic, Russell Wilson, he's quite upset. It just speaks volumes that Tom Brady, having all the power, got the job done. And when he was with the Patriots in his last year, he had zero power. Didn't even get the receivers he wanted. I mean, he had no help back in New England, and he had a good defense there too. It was just he had no help on the receiving end. And now he had Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, and Antonio Brown. If all those guys are playing in their prime, they're not losing a single game. And they just looked incredible out there, and they didn't lose the big game. So
that's for sure.
That's just incredible that Tom Brady got to do that.
I think Jason Licht, or Licht, however you say his name, the GM for the Bucks, Bruce Arians, all these guys deserve massive credit for helping. Well, not even helping, just getting out of Tom Brady's way, essentially, just letting him like not make big decisions, but get the guys he wants to play with and helping them establish that winning culture. And Tom Brady won his Super Bowl MVP, his 5th one. I think you could honestly give it to anyone on the defensive side of the ball or Gronkowski. I understand why they gave it to Brady, but I mean, I think Brady, when it comes down to it, he didn't even have to play that remarkable this game, but he won the Super Bowl, 7th Super Bowl, like you said. And this is about to be my Brady tangent, but I don't understand how people can hate Tom Brady. Like it makes no sense to me. Like, especially I think after this Super Bowl, people are like realizing he's on a different team now. Like it wasn't all the Patriots. Like this guy is just another athlete, like another level. Cause I think his leadership of all is what brings everything together. Like his leadership over all these guys, his ability to control a locker room. And I don't know if he was always like that, but like if you compare someone like Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure they're good leaders, but Tom Brady is just at a different level. And I think that's what sort of supersedes everything else. And what gives him that postseason success is because all these guys buy into whatever Tom Brady is doing. Like even Gronk was willing to put his body on the line, if you will, by going on the TB12 diet, or Julian Edelman doing stuff like that too. They're all trading with the same guy. Like Tom Brady is just a galvanizing leader, and he doesn't seem like that. You know, he just seems like a normal guy in all honesty, but I think the impact he has on a locker room is phenomenal. And I think just overall, his story is crazy. Like 6th round pick 199. I heard something about like Luke Falk being drafted 199, and Luke Falk he was on the Jets. He's no longer in the NFL, I believe. I mean, there's so many 199 picks, so many late round quarterbacks, so many early round quarterbacks like Dwayne Haskins, like, you know, Mason Rudolph, 2nd round quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So many early round picks, even a guy like Christian Hackenberg from Penn State a few years ago with the Jets. There's so many of these guys who are picked early who fail, let alone picked late, Amal, who wasn't even a full-time starter in college. He was literally picked 199, had no athleticism whatsoever. I'm sure I'm a better athlete than he was back then. And he comes out here and he does something remarkable. He becomes the greatest football player of all time. And he's in debate for being one of the greatest athletes of all time. And obviously he's not the most athletic guy, but what he's done as a person, and it's just sort of like the message he has around him. I don't understand how people can hate him, because what Tom Brady signifies is like anyone can do it if they put their mind into it. That's what I take away from Tom Brady. Sort of like Kobe Bryant almost. And I think Kobe's not necessarily on the same level as Tom Brady, but another guy who has a crazy work ethic and he's going to control everything he can control. Like, it's just phenomenal what those type of guys can do when we have that work ethic. Even a guy who is not an athlete at all, like Tom Brady, can become a great football player. And I think you can translate that to anything, whether it be podcasting or doing well in school or whatever it might be, running fast. I think if you put your mind to it, you can definitely do it. And that's sort of the message that Tom Brady brings. And I think people are starting to hate him less. They're sort of starting to recognize that he is great, and they're sort of at peace with it now. But at the end of the day, there are still people who hate Tom Brady and will do anything they can to take stuff away from him. And I just don't understand that. He's just so great. I think you just got to acknowledge his greatness. And same thing, for example, in basketball, people hate LeBron. LeBron James, I'm not the biggest basketball guy, but every time I watch LeBron James, it's like, dude, I am blessed to watch this guy. What he does on the basketball court is incredible. And obviously completely different player. He's way more of an athlete than Tom Brady, but it's still the point still stands. These guys are just so good. And I don't understand why people hate on them unnecessarily. If Tom Brady was on the Cowboys, I'm sure we'd all hate him. And that's understandable. But I think Tom Brady as a guy, you can't hate him.
Definitely not. I think I completely agree with you. I mean, I hated him when he was on the Patriots. I didn't admit he was the GOAT. It was just a time. Obviously, I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan, so that Colts Patriots rivalry is definitely quite big. So I guess that has part to do with it. But I mean, like you said, I think you just can't. Numbers never lie. I think at the end of the day, that's the point. And he basically has every single quarterback record minus MVP. And that he's second most all time. I mean, that's not I really don't think there's nothing to really even discuss here. He leads the league. He leads all time in passing yards, and he's still planning on playing. He said he's planning on playing up to 45. I mean, the dude could literally do whatever he wants. But yeah, now we can hop right into this free agency that's going on. So now that the Bucs are now the Super Bowl champions, they also have a lot of players that are entering the open market that could potentially be leaving the reigning Super Bowl defending champs. So, yeah, you want to dive right into that, Reeve?
Let's go for it, man. There's a lot of players overall. And I think sort of what my takeaway from diving into it right now is the football season never ends on the Fleaflicker podcast.
Never.
Number one, I think we can just go in order of not even the Bucs, but the biggest free agents in general. And the first one is Dak Prescott, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He's 28, which I didn't realize he was 28, but he's coming off a broken ankle, broken everything, honestly. It might have been a fibula, tibula, I have no clue, but his leg is gone, but he's rehabbing now. He should be fine. Dak Prescott, the latest big quarterback contracts have been, I think Deshaun got 40 million and Patrick Mahomes got 50 million. I don't think Dak Prescott is as good as those guys. I think Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback. And I think at the end of the day, he wants to be in Dallas. And I think the best thing for him is to probably take a pay cut and sign with Dallas, honestly. But Dak Prescott is definitely the biggest free agent this year because, I mean, he's a quarterback and he's a top 10 quarterback at that. And in an offseason where we've already seen a ton of quarterbacks move, I think Dak Prescott is definitely a name worth mentioning because he could definitely move. And if he doesn't, he's probably going to get franchise tagged if he doesn't come up with a long-term deal. But I highly doubt Dak Prescott doesn't end up wearing a number 4 jersey in blue and gray come September.
Well, he could wear blue and gray and play for another team. That's all. But I think I'm with you here. Number one for me is also, I think, Dak Prescott for sure. Dak Prescott, still, I think he plays at an elite level. You could probably say he was around top 8 to top 10 quarterback prior to his injury, and I think he's going to bounce back. He's going to play well. Right now, currently, if the Cowboys were to tag him again, it would be worth $37.7 million for Dak Prescott. And honestly, I just feel bad for the dude. The dude's has been kept on getting tagged. So
it's like the Kirk Cousins situation back when there were the Washington Redskins, and
yeah,
they just
exactly.
kept giving him franchise tags. And it was pretty obvious that in that scenario, they didn't want to pay Kirk Cousins. And I think at the end of the day, Jerry Jones is the type of guy to default to his players. And I think even though I don't think they can win paying Dak Prescott like $38 million per year with that roster, but at the end of the day, Dak Prescott will make you not mediocre. And I think Jerry Jones is fine with paying him to make sure the team is not like a crap
yeah, exactly. You don't want to be like the New York Knicks of the football league. I think the New York Knicks are genuinely regarded as the most prestigious basketball team in basketball. I mean, I think they are still the most valuable team in the NBA. And in terms of the football teams, I think Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable football team in the NFL. You don't want to be like completely. You don't want to continuously play below par and not living up to your standards and value and play poorly. So I'm with you here. I think they're going to end up forcing to pay Dak. I think he's probably going to make closer to $40 million a year, because I think they just have to buy into whatever his demands are at the end of the day. It's similar to what happened when they signed Ezekiel Elliott. And if not, I could easily see maybe a tag and trade. I could definitely see that. And maybe Dak Prescott wears the number 4 in another team. But yeah, I think it'd be really stupid if the Cowboys were to move on from him. But yeah,
especially since, I mean,
you saw how they were without him. Exactly.
Yeah. Also, they sucked without him, first of all.
Exactly.
And also, like, when you look at the Cowboys right now, they're picking at like number 10. So realistically, the top 4 quarterbacks are going to be gone by that time. Someone else is going to trade up. I'm sure the Houston Texans are going to do something crazy. Jets are going to do something crazy. They're teams that need a quarterback, like Carolina. They're going to trade up. Denver, those type of teams are going to trade up. And you're not in a prime shape to get a quarterback in the draft. And if you're moving on from someone like Dak Prescott, you're moving on to a rookie who is going to have a cheap deal. I think we need to talk about the wide receivers. There's a ton of big names. Chris Godwin from the Bucs, who just won a Super Bowl. Allen Robinson from the Bears. Kenny Golladay from Detroit, who literally did nothing this year because he was injured. Juju Smith-Schuster from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Corey Davis from the Tennessee Titans, who finally had a breakout year in his 4th year. Will Fuller is the one I just forgot about. Curtis Samuel, Marvin Jones from the Lions, T.Y. Hilton from the Colts. Antonio Brown's a free agent, and Nelson Aguilar is also a free agent. So honestly, just skimming over these wide receivers, I listed, I think, 11. You got bigger bodied guys who play the slot, like Juju Smith-Schuster, if you want that. If you want speedsters, you got Will Fuller. If you want a prototypical wide receiver 1, you got Allen Robinson. If you want a more of a prototypical wide receiver 1 who's more of a jump ball specialist, you got Kenny Golladay. If you want an overall great player, Chris Godwin. Nelson Aguilar is a guy who's improving in the slot and on the outside. Corey Davis is a guy who finally had a breakout year, 1,000 yards. Like, looking at this wide receiver free agent class and the wide receiver draft class, honestly, there's no excuse for teams that need wide receivers to not improve, because like even a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, who wasn't the most efficient guy, he is reliable, Mo. He can get those yards from the slot, which is where he mostly prioritizes and plays well. And Curtis Samuel is another gadget guy. T.Y. Hilton's a speedster. Malvern Jones, another jump ball guy. Like, this wide receiver list of all the guys I just listed, and that's just probably like the biggest names that I can come into my mind right now. But all those guys are definitely guys who I'm sure some of them will get overpaid, but I think all of them have the talent to capitalize elsewhere. And I'd say all of them, other than Chris Godwin and probably Nelson Aguilar and probably Curtis Samuel from the Panthers, who is more of a running back, high wide receiver hybrid. Other than those guys, I think all the other guys are going to leave. So this free agent market for the wide receivers is going to be flooded with good talent. And like I said, if you have money and you need help at wide receiver, there's no reason why you shouldn't improve.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different fits here. I think, like you said, Chris Godwin, I think, probably tops the list here. Chris Godwin had a great year this year. Quite extremely talented. I'd expect him most likely to stay. I think the Bucks will probably tag him. Worst case scenario, but I think Chris Godwin is most likely going to stay. But like guys like Allen Robinson, Kenny Golladay, there's a real possibility those dudes can leave, especially Kenny Golladay.
He just declined like a $16 million contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Offer.
He just declined $16 million a year. So I would assume he's probably going to get even more money.
And even if he doesn't, I think
team.
he just wants to leave the Lions, especially since they're in a rebuild. I'm sure he's fine taking like 14 mil or 15 mil a year, knowing that he's not playing in Detroit.
Yeah. I mean, unless he gets screwed over and then gets franchise tagged. And that would be very, very, very expensive if the Lions were to franchise tag him. But yeah, I would expect like Kenny Golladay maybe to go to a team like, I don't know, the Bears. The Bears are a good fit for him. The Giants, the Dolphins. Same could be said with, honestly, Allen Robinson too. Allen Robinson, I think it's very likely that he leaves Chicago unless they get a quarterback of need, which we'll be talking about later on as well when we talk about more into quarterbacks. But yeah, I think those two definitely I could see leaving. So those are like the top tier of the wide receivers that we mentioned. And then there's guys like you said, like Will Fuller, who's on the market. I think a team like Green Bay, who's dying to get Will Fuller in the trade deadline, fell through in the last second. So I think Green Bay is probably going to go after Will Fuller. I know you probably believe that as well. Mm-hmm. Juju Smith-Schuster, there's like, I know Oakland is very interested. The LA Chargers, they could have a great 3 wide receiver core with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Juju Smith-Schuster playing with Justin Herbert. That would be really cool. Corey Davis is also not a bad player either. I could definitely see Corey Davis going into the free agency market and gaining a lot of value. He can be getting like 16 mil a year, 15 mil a year, maybe going to a team like Indy or maybe the Washington football team. Those teams are not, it's not a bad idea. Or he could even stay put with the Tennessee Titans. Antonio Brown, another player. I expect him to stay. I think he's probably once again going to get very minimal value. I think
he's going to retire with the Bucks in the next couple years, whether it be this year or next. Because I think honestly, no other team is willing to take the gamble with Antonio Brown. I think he's wanted to play with Tom Brady essentially the last like 5 years. He's always been talking about Tom Brady. He'd throw a Big Ben under the bus, but he'd be hyping up Tom Brady in the same sentence. And I think he's very much like content with where he is, especially since he just won a Super Bowl.
Exactly. And then you mentioned T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton, I expect him to resign. I'd be shocked if T.Y. Hilton were to leave, because I don't know if he'd get the same amount of value that outside of the Indianapolis Colts per se. Curtis Samuel, another guy. Marvin Jones, Nelson Aguilar. I expect these guys to get mid-level contracts. I think like close to around like 7 to 10 million. I think that's probably fair to say, right, Reeb? That these guys, they probably won't get paid as much as.
And they're all good receivers,
they're all good receivers. I think they're all wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Even guys like Keelan Cole are free agents. Danny Amendola, Higgins. I think those guys could still get the job done. AJ Green. I think I mean, this is still a very good wide receiver class,
Yeah, it's
obviously. I
very
mean,
deep and very top heavy as well. Like you got everything. If you want a
yeah,
star alpha, you can get that. If you
you
want
can
like a good
100% get it.
contributor,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got that. I mean, you got everything, honestly.
Wide receiver market's stacked for sure.
Yeah.
And if you need a wide receiver for your team, you should have no problem landing one of those top guys for sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk about the edge market real quick. Jadeveon Clowney from the Titans, who just got traded, I believe, there. Yannick Ngakoue, who just got traded to the Ravens. Shaq Barrett from the Super Bowl winning Bucks is on the market. Leonard Floyd from the Rams, who I don't know if the Rams even have enough money to re-sign Leonard Floyd, but I think that would probably be one of their priorities if I were them, because Leonard Floyd, I think he's very much an underrated player. He's not like, I've heard people say he's not like an alpha, but he's a very good number two. And that's what you're getting in a guy um, like,
Leonard
whatever his
Floyd.
name is, Leonard Floyd.
Yeah.
They have no cap space, but I'm assuming they're going to try to do something. Bud Dupree from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I believe tore his ACL and ended his season prematurely. Matthew Judon, another player for the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens are one team that I've seen that have a lot of defensive line starters that are potentially going to leave. I think they have, I think I already said Yannick. They have Matthew Judon. Both those guys are very talented players. And then they also have players like
Alden
Titus
Smith.
Bowser, Alden Smith is on the market. Melvin Ingram, who is a longtime Charger / San Diego Charger, LA Charger. He is another guy who didn't play a lot of games last season. He was injured a lot of it, but when he did play, I mean, he had 7 sacks in 7 games. So he's another impact player who throughout his entire career, he's never been like a true number one pass rusher like Leonard Floyd, but he's always been a good contributor, good run stuffer, and good at pressuring the quarterback with Joey Bosa. Those are probably the biggest guys. I'd say, honestly, and Olivier Verdin also from the Cleveland Browns. I think this, from looking at the edge market, I think you've got I think you got good big bodied players, but I don't think anyone who is like truly like a number one is hitting the market. You've got like really high upside guys and Shaq Barrett, who I think Shaq Barrett's going to re-sign with the Buccaneers. Um, Jadeveon Clowney, Yannick Ngakoue, you got those 3 guys, Leonard Floyd. After that, the edge market kind of dries up not necessarily in the fact that you're getting bad players, but you're getting players who aren't true number ones. At the end of the day, if you need an edge player, the draft is usually where you go instead of overpaying players who are later on in their career, like a Matthew Judon, who's 29, who is a good contributor. But at the end of the day, like, would you rather pay Matthew Judon like 12 million a year, or would you rather draft a guy? Like, I'd rather draft a guy personally and try to develop him, because you know what you're getting in a player like Matthew Judon. Overall, the edge class, I think it's fine. Nothing too spectacular, because I think other than Jadeveon Clowney, I think the top 3 guys are going to re-sign. So
Yeah, a couple guys I think that are also good for edge. Carl Lawson, I think he's been quite good as well. He had a great rookie year, especially. Um, but I think he could be a player that like could potentially be good. He played with the Bengals. Uh, Another player, maybe what's his face? Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson from the Saints. That he seemed to work out well. I could definitely see him getting some traction. But I think, like you said, Arib, not really too many edge number ones per se, like guys that were gonna like really stand out. Obviously, there's Shaq Barrett, Melvin Ingram. Melvin Ingram was a monster whenever he's been playing with the Chargers, but those guys, I think, it's also age has to do it. But with Shaq Barrett, I expect him to stay. I mean, it would be shocking if Shaq Barrett were to leave, and if he were to leave, I'd expect every team to go after Shaq Barrett, because he's an
yeah, for
absolute
sure.
monster. He's an absolute monster.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess the next topic would probably be O line.
I was gonna say O-line, because you got
Yeah,
two really big name players here. Brandon Scherf from the Washington football team, he's 29. just got his first All-Pro. I'm going to say he stays, but Washington, I guess Washington has always been sort of, they don't really open the bag for these guys. Usually they usually let them hit the free agent market, and mostly because they don't want to be there. But I think Brandon Sheriff's a guy where I think he definitely wants to be in Washington. So I'd assume he stays, but that's a name worth
Yeah,
watching.
definitely. I'd also expect him to stay.
Trent Williams, the long time. I think he's an All-Pro. He's definitely
Yes,
a
he
multiple
is.
time Pro Bowler. He used to be on the Washington football team. Now he's on the 49ers. He got traded there. I'm going to say he stays. I think he's going to stay because the Niners give up draft capital to get him, and I think they have enough money to pay him. So if you think you're in a Super Bowl window, which I definitely still think the Niners are, you've got to make sure you can do everything you can to keep a guy like Trent Williams. Third, Joe Thuney, the guard from New England. He was franchise tag last offseason. Everyone thought he was going to hit the market, but he was a surprise franchise tag. Another very good player. He was graded out very good according to PFF. And I don't really know too much about the guy, but I've only heard he's a great player. So I don't know if he's going to re-sign in New England. I don't know what the news is on that, but that's a guy worth monitoring. And then if I'm looking at tackles, Alejandro Villanueva, former military guy,
Taylor Moton.
Russell Okung, who is like 70 years old, but still playing good football for the Carolina Panthers. I'd assume he probably re-signs with Carolina, but again, these are guys that are very, I don't know if they're like the best guys, talking about these guys right now, but overall, I think I like this market for offensive linemen, especially early on. Like, I think those big three, big four, they're definitely going to get some money. And if you need to improve the offensive line, you can definitely look here. There aren't some scrubs on the market. You're going to get some good players in the offensive line class, at least from my
Yeah,
early takeaways.
yeah, definitely. Another name to look out for: Corey Linsley, probably the best center on the market. He plays for the Green Bay Packers. He looked great this
I'd
past
assume he
year.
resigns.
I would assume he resigns too, but I mean, it definitely set a teams that need a center. I could definitely see maybe even the Eagles if they're Jason Kelsey decides to call it quits. I could definitely see something like that happening. But yeah, there's just so many different options. Darrell Williams with the Buffalo Bills at tackle. I mean, there's just too many options for tackle and guard and center. So like you said, I think if you need to know offensive lineman, I think you should have no problems. But I think Trent Williams, I think you could expect him to stay. Probably same with Brandon Sheriff. I think it's quite ironic, Arib, that the highest paid guards are in the NFC East. Brandon Brooks, Zach Martin, and Kevin Zietler, and now Brandon Sheriff. I would expect will be joining that list as well. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I mean that's probably going to sum up the offensive line.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about defensive line real quick. And I think I wanted to talk about the Giants. We were talking about the Giants before the show, but they've got two guys that are in Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive lineman, 27. He's one of the best run stuffing defensive tackles in the league. And he's just overall a very elite player. And Leonard Williams, who they franchise tag, another defensive lineman. And I think the Giants, they don't have a lot of money. They don't have free up cap space, but those two guys, if you're rebuilding this team, you can't not prioritize the trenches. And I get you might have to overpay for a guy like Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson, but at the end of the day, you've got to get it done if you're the Giants, because those are probably the two best interior defensive linemen on the market at the moment. Like, you just got to prioritize that from what I'm looking at. Then Shelby Harris, who's kind of old now for the Denver Broncos, is another key guy. And yeah, honestly, defensive line, interior defensive line, aren't there isn't a lot of guys. It's honestly just those two guys, and then Daquan Jones for the Titans, and Ndamukong Suh as well for the Bucks. He's probably, I'm going to assume, resigns, but Ndamukong Suh is a guy who is well known to like the money, to say the least. I wouldn't say he's necessarily like a guy like a Revis Island, where Darrell Revis was all about getting the bag, but Ndamukong Suh, he's probably going to go wherever he gets the most money now that he's gotten a ring. But who knows? Maybe he's already gotten enough money and he's willing to take less money because the Bucs, they've got another player in Levante David, who we're going to talk about in the linebackers, who wants to get paid like the highest paid linebacker. And I think he's very much deserving of that honor, but he is on the older side. The Bucs don't have the most cap space. I believe they are 10th right now, 30 million. So they've got 3-4 big name guys they need to bring back. And I think at least one of them is not going to get brought back. Just, it's the market and just the way that the business works out. But
the way the cookie crumbles,
that's what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, the biggest names here, Ndamukong Suh and Dalvin Tomlinson and the other Giants guy, Leonard Williams. Those are the three guys that I would look to in this in the defensive tackle market.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you. I think those are the three names. You also mentioned Shelby Harris. Yeah, I think those are the right three guys. Giants should prioritize signing Tomlinson and Williams. I think that is quite important.
They're going to need to cut players. Like I think they've already decided to cut their the Patriots tackle they just signed recently. Nate Solder, they're probably going to cut Golden Tate. They only have $8 million in cap space, which is not enough to sign both those guys, but they need to work it out because those are the two best names in the market right now, both younger guys, both high upsides and high floors. So you've got to work on that if you're the Giants, to say the least.
Definitely. I do want to touch on the cornerback market. The cornerback market is also quite good. They got first William Jackson III, out of the Cincinnati Bengals. Definitely a name that stood out for me. He played on his 5th-year option. Pro Football Focus had him ranked as the 6th best defensive grade for a cornerback. I think he's looked good. I'd expect him to walk, especially since they just signed Trey Waynes. So I'd expect I could definitely see William Jackson III walking. Richard Sherman, probably one of the best corners of this decade, if not the best corner of this past decade. He's been very vocal about what his plans are in this free agency. He doesn't plan on returning with the Niners. Quite shocking, actually, considering now everyone's all healthy and ready to go for this upcoming season. I think he's impatient with that, and he wants to immediately move on and play for a contender. So maybe look out for teams like Buffalo or the Raiders or the Buccaneers. There's just a lot of teams that can definitely go after a guy like Richard Sherman and his caliber. Desmond King, another great corner as well.
He just got traded though from the Chargers to the Tennessee Titans. He's a good return man, and he plays mostly slot corner, I believe. I think he's going to resign with the because he just got traded for.
Exactly. Mike Hilton, another great corner. Plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'd expect him to probably stay though. Shaquille Griffin, brother of Shaquem Griffin, another good corner. I'd expect Seattle to re-sign him as well, considering they do still need help in defense altogether. So I'd expect him to stay. Troy Hill, Chidobe Awuzie, just a couple names.
Jason Verrett's also
Brian
another
Poole,
guy.
Xavier Woods, Jason Verrett, Quinton Dunbar, Xavier Rhodes, Ronald Darby, Patrick Peterson, of course, All-Pro, also one of the greatest corners in this past decade. Nickel Roby-Coleman, Mackenzie Alexander, Kwan Williams, Garyon Conley. Like I said, the cornerback market is just stacked. I think you'll have no problem finding a good corner here. I listed Xavier Rhodes so late, and there's just so many good running backs, and Xavier Rhodes had a great year. I expect this quarterback market to be heavy, and I expect a lot of teams to shop heavy for these positions, considering probably one of the most important positions on defense. So definitely looking out for that, Arif.
Yeah, I think from the corners, like last year, we had some bigger name guys. We had some, like, especially like James Bradbury is the one that stands out to me. I don't think you're
Definitely.
getting a James Bradbury in this class, but it's very much a deep class where we're getting long time starters like Shaquille Griffin. I think he's definitely started the last 3 seasons, if not more. William Jackson has been a long time starter. Obviously, Richard Sherman, Jason Verrett, another Niners cornerback, and honestly, if they can't re-sign both those guys, their Super Bowl window might be over. In all honesty, because those two guys, even in this old age, Richard Sherman's currently, and he's 33. He's still very much a good corner. He's smart. He knows how to play his zone coverage. Knows how to do his role. And I think that's still very much a valuable thing to have in the NFL because lots of people screw up their assignments, and Richard Sherman's not going to screw up his assignment. But I think that's just my final takeaway. There isn't like a number one, like true number one corner, but you're like not a Byron Jones from last year's class, but you're getting some solid players here. Um, Safety, Justin Simmons is the one that highlights for me from the Denver Broncos. And honestly, what I said about the cornerback market, where they didn't have a lot of good players like they did last year, it flips with the safety market where you have a ton of good guys. Marcus Williams from the Saints, who is very infamous for having his whiff tackle on Stephon Diggs on the Diggs sideline play in the 2017 playoffs when he was a rookie. But he's been a phenomenal safety, phenomenal free safety for the New Orleans Saints back there. And then you have Anthony Harris, who is also, I want to say he's more of a free safety as well, because I think he and Harrison, right? The other Vikings guy. I'm not good with names anymore, but those
Anthony
two guys,
Harris.
no, Anthony Harris, and then you have the other Harrison, who's been a very good safety for the Vikings for like the longest time. I can't remember his name, but those two guys, they do a really good job. And Anthony Harris, I think, is very much, he's an older guy. He was probably going to get traded this season, but he didn't. He's another guy worth keeping your mind on. Marcus May, who I would be shocked if he doesn't re-sign with the Jets, because he's probably a top 10 safety and he goes completely underneath the radar because of the fact that he's playing on the Jets. John Johnson, who has a very fun name, plays strong safety for the LA Rams rather. Another guy worth mentioning. Like those top 5 guys, those are the guys you're looking out for if you need a safety. And the safety market has been sort of undervalued recently. There's just not that. Like I remember there's a guy like Trey Boston who sat on the market forever. Eric Reed sat on the market forever. So the safety market's undervalued now, but those top 5 guys are very elite. And then Malik Hooker, former first round pick for the Colts. You're saying as a Colts fan, you think he's going to leave? I would probably bet on that too. He tore his Achilles early on this season. But yeah, those are probably the 6 guys. And you could probably throw in Xavier Woods from the Dallas Cowboys, who isn't, he's like an overall solid player. He's nothing really too special, but at the end of the day, I think he probably wants to resign with Dallas, but I don't know if they want to have him back. He's not the highest ceiling of a player, to say the least.
Definitely. I think you listed out all the different
Very
safeties
top
that
heavy.
top heavy for sure. Yeah, I think Anthony Harris is the main guy that I think stands out to me. Marcus May is another one too, but I think those guys, Marcus Williams as well. I think that's probably the dude you're thinking of. Marcus Williams. I think he's going to be good for the Saints. From the Saints, I think he's probably going to walk as well. John Johnson the third from the Rams, another great safety. Like you said, top heavy for sure. If you're in need of a safety or any secondary help altogether, I think this free agent class is definitely going to be quite helpful.
Yeah, I want to talk about running backs real quick. There's number one guy, clearly Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones as a running back, I think he's not the best pass catcher, but as a pure running back, you can see his speed on the field. You can see his burst, just everything. He doesn't fumble the ball that often. He's just an overall good package as a running back. I don't know if he's elite, but his ability to find the end zone is something that's very underrated. I think some people got it, some people don't. And Aaron Jones very much does have the ability to score touchdowns. The running back market is undervalued, as it should be, as we've said on this podcast multiple times. Like, it's a sad reality, but running backs, They are very much a replaceable position. And I think Aaron Jones and his fellow running mate, both who were drafted in the same year, Jamal Williams for the Green Bay Packers, I think both those guys, out of both of them, I'd say one of them re-signs with Green Bay, but one of them probably leaves them all because at the end of the day, you can't pay two running backs on the same team that much money. It's just unfeasible. And then Chris Carson, former 7th-round pick for the Seattle Seahawks. I hope he gets his payday because 7th-round pick, he's not getting anything. He's very much a reliable physical guy. I think he and Aaron Jones breaks a lot of tackles. Chris Carson also does the same, but he's much more a stockier, slower running back, better pass catcher. Those are the 3 guys worth mentioning at the running back position. And I'm just thinking if there's any more. Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, both former Steelers. Le'Veon Bell, all honesty, he looks washed. James Conner, never been a fast runner. I don't think they get massive hype in the market. Kenyon Drake for the Cardinals, I think he probably leaves because he's going to ask for a lot more money than they're going to be willing to pay him. Kenyon Drake, he's definitely probably the 3rd or 4th best running back in this free agent class. He's very much more of a pass catcher, and he still has some athleticism and burst. Does have some slight injury issues. He did have, I think, a long-lasting, I want to say calf injury that held him out for a few games. And then you have James White, pass catcher, and Mike Davis, who filled in admirably for Christian McCaffrey for the Panthers. But Mike Davis is honestly he's the personification of running backs shouldn't get paid that much money because you had him producing at probably like 60% of 70% of Christian McCaffrey's level, and he's a no-name guy named Mike Davis. So running backs, honestly, other than probably Chris Carson and who I'd assume re-signs with Seattle, and Aaron Jones, there isn't too much to talk about here. Lots of washed guys and guys who are going to ask for too much money but aren't worth it.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on some of these picks. Aaron Jones, I expect him to walk. He's going to get some big money. I think probably upwards of probably close to 12 to 13 mil a year. I could definitely see. I think Aaron Jones is probably going to walk. Chris Carson, I could also see him walking, although it's going to be quite difficult considering I don't know if Seattle necessarily has the best running backs currently standing.
And I also think Seattle values Chris Carson more than any other team will because they very much pounded the rock with him. They know they know how to use him like flat out. And I don't know if other teams will value him because I don't think he's, like I said, I don't think he's like super quick or super athletic. I just think he's a good player overall. And I think Seattle would definitely pay him, but I don't know if he's going to get the same market value anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, if they walk from him, obviously I think Seattle will probably look towards the draft for drafting a running back, which is no problem, obviously, because there's some talented running backs in the draft, and we'll talk about that next week. But I think Chris Carson, I would expect him to stay regardless. Kenyon Drake, I think he's probably the 3rd best. I'd probably expect him to stay as well, considering they traded for him. And I think he just fulfilled that value of the trade. James Conner, I expect him to walk probably.
He just looks so slow, man.
I think they drafted McFarland and Benny Snell. I think they're going to stick with those 2 and let Conner walk with whatever the hell he's worth. Mike Davis, he looked good whenever he played. I could definitely see him getting a little bit of value, but I don't think he'll get too much money. Definitely look out for a team like the Bucs to go after him. Maybe the Eagles as a backup running back. I could definitely see something like that. James White, another player. I expect him to stay though for sure. Le'Veon Bell. I can also see him staying. Jamal Williams, I could also expect him to stay. Marlon Mack, I think, is an interesting one for sure. Marlon Mack was he had a 1,000-yard season before tearing his ACL this past year. And now he's the running back 2 on the Colts. So as a free agent, you could definitely see him gaining some traction. I don't think the market value for him will be that high, considering the running backs I listed above him will probably be getting more. So I think he'll probably be getting a low contract, and I could definitely see him returning to the Colts or even playing for another team for a low value and just like a tryout, maybe like sign for Seattle or something like that. I could definitely see something like that happening. Tevin Coleman, He was a great running back for the San Francisco 49ers. He's an injury prone, like you said, old as well. I don't expect him to get a lot of traction in the free agency market. Same with Carlos Hyde. Not a lot of traction there. And really
You
the
can get a
last running back.
Carlos Hyde in the draft. Like you can get a
You
much
can let one
younger
in
player
you can
who's
for
not
like
going
in
to
the
want
sixth
money.
round, probably in like the fifth or
Yeah,
sixth round,
exactly.
exactly. Rex Burkhead, probably the same thing with him. He also tore his ACL this past year, so I expect New England to still keep both him and James White.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed up the running back market pretty well. Like, there's a couple guys who are going to get paid, and the rest, I don't think they're going to take less money than they should. Because if Melvin Ingram, who was probably like a top 10 running back when he hit the market,
Melvin Gordon,
Melvin
yeah,
Gordon, sorry, yeah,
yeah,
he didn't get paid like anywhere what he wanted, then none of these guys after Aaron Jones and Chris Carson are going to get paid anything.
not a
Um,
chance.
I think I want to finish it off with the quarterback market because the quarterback market is just weird, dude. We've already seen Matt Stafford getting traded for Jared Goff, so that's already flip-flopping. The Carson Wentz trade from the Philadelphia Eagles to either the Colts or the Bears or some mystery team, like that's still up in the air, but that's more quarterback movement. Who knows? Maybe Sam Darnold gets moved. We've heard reports of Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins all on the market. And I think we talked about Dak because he's definitely the biggest headliner. I think the problem with the quarterback market is that there's too many good guys in the draft and there's too many guys there's not enough spots, Amal, for players to start, I think, at this point in the quarterback market. So looking at the quarterback market, I already talked about Dak. We both said he's going to stay. Jameis Winston, who with the New Orleans Saints, he's probably going to stay. I'd assume he stays. But that takes up the starting spot for the Saints. And that means they're probably not going to draft anybody, right? And then you have a guy who very much disappointed this year in Cam Newton with the New England Patriots, 32. He just doesn't look like he can throw a football like competently anymore. Like I think he still has his running ability, but at the end of the day, I think Cam Newton's arm is definitely a question mark. And I know he looked bad and Tom Brady looked bad in New England too, but I think Cam Newton looked bad more off of his own accord than Tom Brady looked bad in that same situation back in 2019. Cam Newton, I don't think he gets a starting job because if I'm looking at all 32 teams, right? There's 32 teams. Jacksonville, they're probably going to get a guy in the draft. They're going to get Trevor Lawrence. The Jets, they're either going to stay with Sam Darnold or they're going to get a guy in the draft or they're going to get Deshaun Watson. The Texans, they have Deshaun Watson. If they trade him, they're going to trade him for another quarterback or they're going to trade for an early pick to get somebody. Atlanta, they're going to draft somebody or not. They're going to stay with Matt Ryan. The Bengals, they've already got their guy. The Eagles probably got their guy in Jalen Hurts. Detroit got their guy right now for Jared Goff, I'd assume. Carolina, that's a team that needs a quarterback. Denver probably needs a quarterback. The Giants might need a quarterback. The Niners might need a quarterback. The Patriots and Washington and Chicago. So there's 7 teams that need quarterbacks. There's 5 teams that are going to get the 5 quarterbacks, maybe even 6 that get drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. And then that leaves like guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick and Cam Newton and Andy Dalton. Like, I mean, they're not going to get starting jobs. They're going to be backup somewhere. And it's just the harsh reality and harsh flip-flops almost of recent years. Like Mitch Trubisky, he's probably going to back somebody up because I don't think he's going to get a starting job anywhere, nor does he deserve a starting job. So we've got like 5-6 quarterbacks in the free agent market that 3 of them are probably starting caliber. They could get starting jobs, but I think only one of them probably does. And it's going to be Dak Prescott. Like the rest of these guys, they're just not enough. They're not enough spots for all these starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, let me get into it. Dak Prescott, definitely, we already said he's probably going to stay. I think I'm surprised you're quite low on Fitzpatrick. I think Fitzpatrick, even though he is 38, I could definitely see a team like New England going after Fitzpatrick, signing him for a 1-year deal. I think that would make a lot of sense considering he just wants the team to believe in him. And I think that's what Fitzpatrick's going to be looking for in this free agency market, a team that's willing to commit him as a QB1. And honestly, I think if he looked great whenever he played, so I can definitely see a team like New England, if they gave Cam Newton a chance, why can't they give Ryan Fitzpatrick a chance? And they could still draft quarterback in the first round and it wouldn't hurt them by any means. So I definitely can see Ryan Fitzpatrick going to a team like the New England Patriots there. Jameis Winston, I expect him to stay for sure. And I expect him to get a starting job as well. I mean, I think Jameis Winston at this point in his career won't be playing for a backup job. He just had a backup. He was just a backup this entire season. I mean, the Saints are pretty much guaranteeing him the starter role, whatever they offer him. So I think he's gonna be a starter this year. Cam Newton, it's gonna be interesting where he can go. I think he'll be a backup most likely, unless he goes to maybe the Washington football team. But it was just announced today that Taylor Heineke re-signed with the Washington football team. Great quarterback signing there. And if that's the case, I don't know if necessarily Washington football team will be interested in Cam Newton. So I think backup's probably the best option here. Andy Dalton, same thing with him. Tyrod Taylor, same thing with him. I could see him being a backup. Mitch Trubisky, I think if the Bears strike out on all their possibilities, I think they can obviously go and re-sign Mitch Trubisky. Maybe some competition. Maybe he can go to like the Raiders and compete for a job. But there's not a lot of options here that he could do. Maybe, yeah, like I said, yeah, actually I take it back. There's not a lot of options that you can do with Mitch Trubisky. So that's probably what I would be thinking there. Jacoby Brissett, same thing with him. I'd expect him to probably be a backup still. He's a quality backup, but I think he's still a backup here. Don't know where he can go. Joe Flacco, I'm surprised that dude's still in the league.
He should retire.
Mike Glennon, I don't know how that dude's in the league. CJ Beathard, I think CJ Beathard will stay with the Niners because he's a backup. Why not? But yeah, I think that summed up all the QB market for the free agent side. And in terms of QB trade market, I think really it's headlined by Carson Wentz and Sam Darnold and Deshaun Watson. Carson Wentz, two teams that are mainly listed this past week were the Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, there were some rumors about a deal being done earlier this week about the Bears and the Eagles regarding Carson Wentz. Got shut down, so there's still no deal yet. It was announced that Carson Wentz wanted out and was likely to get traded in the coming days on Saturday. Today is Wednesday, and still no really any movement necessarily when it comes to this Carson Wentz situation here. I'd expect Carson Wentz to get traded to, like I said, one of these two teams. My preference here would be the Indianapolis Colts. I'm pretty sure his preference is also the Indianapolis Colts because they're win now. And it's not just that, I mean, both franchises are really win now, but I think it's the fact that Indianapolis Colts has a lot more to build for him. They hired Press Taylor for him. They have Frank Reich, the offensive coordinator when Carson Wentz had his great year. So I expect that to be a great fit. If not, I can also see Sam Darnold, Colts trading for Sam Darnold. That's also not a bad idea there. Sam Darnold, I definitely expect to get some good traction there. Probably both are I'd expect are worth probably at least one first probably there. And obviously the big name is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, the Texans dysfunctional franchise and disorganized franchise. You have no clue what they're gonna do. Came out today that I think the Jets are probably the only team that can make a trade probably before this draft, and I genuinely think they're the team that gets it done, and whatever the price is, I think they'll pay it, and but anyways, it doesn't matter because the Texans have shown zero interest in trading for Deshaun Watson, and everything's just a standstill right now in Houston, and it just sucks being a Houston Texans fan right now. And I
think
feel for
these
them,
Houston
man.
Texans
It's
fans
rough.
I think these Texans fans are probably going to convert to wherever Deshaun Watson goes, in all honesty, because
Exactly. It's just so poor, man. It's beyond poor the way that this franchise has been going on. Just recently announced today, also the president of the Texans also got fired. Not fired, my bad. He resigned. He quit from his job because of the nonsense that's been going on. I mean, they literally are in a standstill. He said he wants out. They haven't done anything about it. They hired a coach without his permission. They've moved on like everything is normal without him. So it's crazy why they wouldn't move on from him. I don't know why, but they still expect him to be at training camp. That's beyond crazy. Uh, Interesting stuff there. Another name that was popping up a lot recently was obviously Russell Wilson. I don't see anything big here. I'd give it less than 5% chance that anything happens here. Yes, he said some very strong comments regarding, yes, I do want more control. Yes, I don't know my future with the Seahawks. He said this on the Dan Patrick show. But I think you have to, I mean, at the end of the day, he's Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson goes to any team, I think he's getting equivalent value to Deshaun Watson, if not more value than Deshaun Watson, because he's proven commodity. He's won a damn Super Bowl. He's made it there twice. And honestly, the only thing that man needs is protection. Yes, he has Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, but I think honestly he made it work with Doug Baldwin and DK and Tyler
Doug Baldwin
Lockett.
was a great player, Amal. Don't discredit Doug Baldwin.
But I mean, but I'm just saying Doug. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? I'm trying to say
O-line matters more than wide receivers, and we saw it in
exactly.
the Super Bowl. And I think Russell Wilson just is trying to make his point. And I think this is just more him trying to get the team to prioritize drafting offensive line. That's what I see here, because I highly doubt I put the chances he gets moved at 1%. I think this sort of
very low.
comfort,
it's very low.
or like the whatever, I forget the exact phrasing he said, but I think he was more of, he's just trying to put pressure on the Seahawks to actually draft the offensive line for the first time in like 6-7 years, because they just haven't done it. And that's the reason why they aren't a legitimate Super Bowl contender every year, Amal, because it's very much Russell Wilson carrying the team on his back and coming up with tons of late second like comeback wins and all that. Like the Seahawks are like a 6-10 team that ends up finishing like 11-5, 12-4 because of Russell Wilson. They're a 12-4 team disguised as a 6-10 team. Like that's just what they are every single year, because they don't prioritize building the trenches the right way.
Definitely. And I mean, it's like I said, it's still very unlikely. Obviously, the teams that you can obviously think about would be obviously the Colts, the Niners are out of it if it's in division, obviously. But I think Raiders. But regardless, you can't even see Russell Wilson getting traded. It's beyond crazy. Derek Carr is another name that popped up a lot, but I think the Raiders are smart enough to not move him. Stick to who they have, but they are willing to move Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota showed a lot in the 2 games I think that he played, and they believe that he's taken on that Ryan Tannehill approach to things. He's learned as a backup, and I think he's ready to take on a starting role. You definitely see a team like the Chicago Bears going after Marcus Mariota if they strike out on Carson Wentz. And then another name that's I guess left to really that stands out to me is the Ravens tackle. I'm blinking out on the name, Orlando Brown Jr. Orlando Brown, I think he's probably he said he wants out. I think it's going to be very difficult for the Ravens to trade him, because the asking price will probably be similar to what the Laramie Tunsil trade was with 2 firsts. And at that point, I don't know if it's necessarily worth that when you can just draft an offensive tackle in the first round. There's a plethora of offensive linemen that you can pick in the first round.
Yeah, this year's draft class is super deep as well.
Every year you can draft offensive linemen in the first round. There's a lot. Like last year, I think there were 5 offensive linemen that were in the first 10 picks, Reed. This year, I think you should have no problem with that as well. So as great as Orlando Brown is, and yes, he's proven, I think 2 firsts is just simply a price that's too much to pay. And I know that's probably his asking price, because he's a better tackle than Laramie Tunsil, in my opinion. And it's going to be difficult to get to move him, but he's a name that's definitely that will be traded eventually in this off season. So yeah, those are all the big names in this off season. Just finished the 2020-2021 NFL season. Now we're about to enter into the 2021 NFL season, 2021-2022 NFL season, and I can't wait. Looking forward to who my team takes at quarterback, whether it be Carson Wentz, It could even be Jameis. It could be Sam Darnold. It could even be Jacoby Brissett. I don't know, man. It could be trading up. I'm taking it a completely different direction because of this Philip Rivers retiring. So I'm interested to see how that goes, and I'm interested to see how other teams handle this offseason, whether teams get better or worse. Yeah, it's definitely something to look out for, Reed.
Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say as well. I'm very much interested to see what happens in this free agency. Every single NFL season, I like to say, and I think you say this as well, like the next season is always the most exciting. And 2021, I guess 2020 already finished, but I'm looking forward to that. Next week, planning on doing a mock draft, so you can be on the lookout for that. And I'm also going to try to look into these recent coaching hires. I think there's 6 or 7 guys that have been recently hired as head coaches for NFL franchises. And I want to do like a ranking list of them based on what we've seen from them previously, their press conferences, all that stuff. But yeah, that is it from me. Thank you for listening to episode 55, the Big 5-5, and peace out. Bye.